Hey everyone, hope you're all doing great. Welcome back to the Anime Fictions 2.0. Today, we're diving into another exciting What If, Part 8 of Naruto Rise of Lord of the Foxes. If you're enjoying these alternate timelines, make sure to hit that subscribe button, share it with your friends, and check out the other videos on the channel. And of course, drop your thoughts in the comments. I always love hearing your ideas. Alright, enough talk, let's get into the story. It was about midday when the carriages carrying the Kages and delegates came, and the riders parked themselves near the main gates. Each one of their respected guests were all being greeted by Tsunade, Jiraiya, and the council. Though the guests greeted back, it was clear that the smiles did not match the eyes that were filled with disappointment, a lot of hate, and resentment towards Konoha's leaders. Finally, however, came the one that all of Konoha had dreaded since Idate had told them all about what happened in Rock Country at the bar known as the Devil's Nest, which Jiraiya's spy network did confirm actually happened. It had created quite a stir among the Konoha populace, with Sasuke wanting to fight the Shikage even more while Danzo wanting to have the enigma that was the Shikage eliminated. When the carriages pulled up, everyone was frightened at the sight of them, as they were a shadow black, mixed with blood red along the sides, and they had spikes made from solid bone from a large animal as a defense should the vehicle ever be caught in motion. Not only that, but the driver of the heavily armored, black-colored, red-eyed horse was none other than one of the druids the Shikage seemed to have at his disposal. Next to the druid was a Shinigami ninja wearing a fox skull mask, with long white hair, and enough chakra to possibly choke a Kage with if necessary. When the carriages finally stopped, the Shinigami ninja got off the horse with a fox-like grace, making Tsunade suspect if he was Naruto in disguise. She, along with the council, who were thinking this, were interrupted from their thoughts when the horse reeled back on its two hind legs before blowing a stream of fire from its nostrils. Indeed, the Shikage is truly frightening when it comes to displaying his power, thought Tsunade, sensing Sasuke watching from atop a nearby building waiting for the opportune moment to strike. Normally she would want to help stop such a thing from happening, knowing that the very outcome, regardless of the attack being successful, or would be bad overall. Still, it could provide her with some information on the Shikage's power or those around him with such strange powers. As the white-haired ninja approached the door, 4 more Shinigami ninjas appeared across from each other wearing skull masks as well. They were next to the door, 2 in a row, kneeling with their right hand in a semi-fisted form on the ground. The other hand was near their kunai pouch should an ambush ever come and they had to defend their Kage from any surprise attacks. The door opened, and out came the man Jiraiya had described to her from the rumors he had heard from when the village was being started. He was holding an urn that Tsunade had recognized from the description Kakashi gave, having been the one to bury her next to the late 4th Hokage. The man carried himself with a grace unnatural for a shinobi, or that of a human for that matter, meaning, whoever this person was not human. The next person to come out was the Shikage himself, wearing dark robes with navy blue outlining with a hood that covered his face in total darkness. His hands were covered in dark gloves and his feet were hidden beyond the robes he wore, which the back held the kanji for the demon of Death Valley on the back from the angle she saw him when he turned to address the white-haired ninja. The said shinobi bowed his head, indicating he understood after the Shikage said something to him. Soon the Shikage, the 5 Shinigami shinobi, and the unknown entity holding Kushina's urn walked towards Tsunade, Jiraiya, and the council. The Shinigami genin teams were still in their respectable carriages, not given the order to leave them by the first Death Shadow. It was already drawing quite a crowd from the various feudal lords and Kages that were with their own bodyguards near their carriages. Shikage-sama, I welcome you to Konohagakure no Sato for the duration of the Chunin exams. I trust you will find that despite our recent problems that there will be no hostility from our village to you. Just as we expect none from you in return, said Tsunade, smiling into the unseeingly ending darkness of the hood the mysterious man wore, surprised that it shielded his true identity so well. She was even more surprised when he started talking in a strange language that no one in Konoha possibly knew or understood. He had made several hand gestures between both himself and his apparently second-in-command before pointing at her, and then Konoha in general. Shikage-sama says that you will have to forgive his choice in speaking of his tongue in this matter, as he only speaks one ancient language and dares not speak ours, which he considers the language of the arrogant. Any and all questions or comments that you wish to address will be answered by me, as I am the official translator for him while staying in Konoha. Hokage-sama, said Kimimaro behind his mask, bowing his head to Tsunade, knowing that despite his long hair no one other than Shinigami, the Kazekage, the 2 of the Kazekage's siblings, and the 2 women that came from Water Country knew of his true identity. It was possible that Kakashi knew, but his pride or his mind rather could not compensate for the idea of a former sound ninja, who was supposed to be dead now alive and breathing. Breathing healthily, Kimimaro mentally added to himself while smirking. I see. Perhaps before you and your genin teams retire at the hotel we have set up for all of you along with other hidden villages you could answer a few brief questions? Said Tsunade as several things had been bothering her since both the Water Country daimyo and Mizukichi came out of their carriages, unleashing a great deal of killer intent at them. She along with the others now watched the masked ninja and his kage now speak to each other in the strange language, not knowing what they could be saying. It had become slightly unnerving and made her feel slightly nervous on the inside, though she refused to show it on the outside. The Shikage will answer what he can through me, but he will only answer questions he sees fit to ask and will simply not speak to me as a sign to proceed to the next question, said Kimimaro, wondering what questions the female Hokage was going to ask. That is reasonable. My first question is this: why are both the Water Daimyo and the Mizukichi hiding their true faces and appearances as much as possible from us? They tried to muffle their voices so we won't possibly recognize them, and when Kakashi tried to speak to the Mizukichi she sent enough killer intent at him to leave him vulnerable to an attack, said Tsunade, knowing that whatever influence the Shikage had over the two was the source of such changes. Shikage-sama has informed me that they hide their true faces and forms to shield their identities from everyone since they have many enemies in and out of Konoha. The most likely reason the Mizukichi possibly dislikes Hatake Kakashi is because of his reputation for playing favorites, his tardiness for missions, betraying his student, and lastly being a book-reading pervert, while secretly trying to hide the fact that he is a homosexual, said Kimimaro after responding to the translation given by the Shikage before feeling Kakashi unleash a great amount of killer intent at the last part being gay, which had not effect on them at all. Fortunately, Tsunade decided to step in to change the situation before it got out of hand. My second question is, why is your strange friend holding the urn of Naruto's mother? Said Tsunade, deciding to find out that particular reason right away while she had the chance. For this question the Shikage remained silent, shaking his head at Kimimaro, who nodded in understanding, knowing the man was not going to respond to that one. Does he have some sort of relationship with Minato's wife? Thought Jiraiya, frowning as he recalled all the memories he had of the woman's friends, knowing fully well that she was faithful to his late student when it came to romance. Her knee to Jiraiya's section between his legs that one time when he was drunk and tried to flirt with her was proof enough. Since you won't answer, we'll go for question number 3. Did you or any of your members from your village kill Uchiha Itachi and the remaining members of Akatsuki? Said Tsunade, feeling an increase in chakra not far from her, knowing it was Sasuke and the response could be disastrous to say the least. Correct, Shikage-sama and several others killed them all, said Kimimaro, fully aware of what the would-be assailant was about to do. Die Shinigami trash! Chidori! Yelled Sasuke, charging at them with a blazing Chidori at high speed, with his Sharingan blazing full of hatred for those who took away his very purpose. Earth style, Imperial Earth Shield Jutsu, said the largest of the Death Four, slamming his palm into the ground, creating a large, thick shield-like form from the earth, blocking Sasuke's attack by several feet. The killer intent coming from the Shikage and his shinobi nearly made Tsunade's heart stop and explode then and there. She was also sure that the others behind her were feeling the same way as her right now for the Uchiha's actions. Sasuke himself, who still found his arms stuck in the shield, fell to his knees in fear at the power of this giant of a Kage and his people that were before him. How could one unleash such powerful killer intent? It wasn't fair. As an Uchiha he deserved the power, the anger, the hate, which was supposed to make him the strongest of anyone, was now in someone else's hands. After 5 more additional minutes the killer intent left the Shikage and his shinobi before the robed Kage snapped his fingers, making the earth jutsu crumple back into the ground. Then the Shikage began to speak in the unknown language at a furious and angry pace while pointing between her and the Uchiha, before opening his hand and then turning it into a viciously closed fist. Shikage-sama says that if the Uchiha or anyone else from Konoha tries that again, then the Leaf Village will have to deal with his unmatched fury. He also says he will make Konoha run red with blood by killing every single person in the village down to the last child if need be, said Kimimaro, who for various reasons was hesitant in saying the last part due to his experience with the old Mizuki's regime concerning bloodline limits. Tsunade's eyes widened at the threat, knowing the man could carry it out with so many of his allies with him, and IWA teams were just looking for a reason to kill the Leaf shinobi around them. She would have to stop such things from going into further motion before such events possibly occurred at the hands of Uchiha, or the council in general. There will be no need to threaten Shikage-sama, as I give you my word that no one will harm you or your team unless it's under Chunin exam regulations, said Tsunade, hoping her words would please the Shikage somewhat. What Tsunade got was a deep, dark, bellowing laugh, as if what she just said was nothing but a joke to him, and quite frankly she didn't like it. A/N, real quick for the laugh, think Jabba the Hutt's laugh from ROTJ. The female Hokage didn't like it even more so when the black-robed Shikage started to talk and moved his hands in a semi-lazy voice to further add insult to injury. Shikage-sama says your word has little to no value, just as Konoha lost its value when your village shunned the teaching of the previous Hokages before you. And you wonder why we took them from you, said Kimimaro, knowing the last part was his own opinion on the matter. I have, said Tsunade, but was interrupted by the individual holding the urn with his coat being pulled by an unknown wind. The Shikage has had enough of your questions and words coming from a place filled with the arrogant and the foolish. We will be heading to our hotel where we can rest for the upcoming exam, said Zangetsu, who was unfazed by Tsunade's fierce glare and returned it with one of his own. Then, without another word being spoken, Zangetsu covered all the Shinigami shinobi around him in his cape before heading to the designated hotel, leaving Tsunade and the others speechless. The hotel in question, the Royal Leaf, where all the hidden villages were staying on their own separate floors, was still one of the more exquisite places in Konoha. Ironically, the place was going to go under due to the events prior to the Chunin exam with the loss of funds the hidden village usually received. Now the hotel was filled with fully employed staff, who were all working round the clock to meet the requests of the various delegates staying with them. I love it when Zangetsu does that in such a beautifully dignified way, said Yumichika, smiling behind his swan skull mask, finding that Zangetsu was, like him, enjoying doing things in a graceful and elegant manner. At least he thought so anyway. Zanchan is just doing what he needs to sway Nichan, said Yuichiro, not seeing the evil glare Yumichika sent him, steam coming out of his ears, and all due to her nickname for him. Yeah, Yumichika, why do you constantly have to think that everything someone does has to be beautiful? Said Ikiku with his wolf skull mask on, with a small kanji for lucky written on the forehead of the skull. At least it would have, had Yuichiro not taken some permanent marker and used it on the symbol, altering the kanji, and making it say Baldi instead. Something Ikiku still did not see despite looking in a mirror every 5 minutes to inspect his mask's overall greatness, as he put it. Oh, shut up, you barbarically bald ugly man, said Yumichika, not in the mood to have his ideals of beauty and grace challenged by those who knew nothing of it, and only liked the luck dance as it was so disgustingly called. What did you say, you metrosexual fruitcake? Said Ikiku, now glaring at his friend from behind his mask, with each shinobi sending lightning bolts at each other via their eyes. Enough. Both of you are acting like idiots, said Kimimaro, who did not want the plan that his master and Zangetsu created go up in smoke. Kim-chan, can I go look around for a little while? Said Yuichiro, looking at the albino through her cat skull mask with red whiskers. Not right now, Yuichiro-san. The Chunin exams start tomorrow and I want you to be fully rested with your teammates for when it starts, said Kimimaro, knowing that this little girl could cause a lot of trouble, and if the plan was to work she need to channel all her trouble-making skills where it could be legally put to use. Don't worry, kid, once we get to the part of the exams where you have to fight you can unleash all the mayhem you want on your opponents, said Ikiku, knowing just how much trouble the girl could cause, having been pestered continuously to put wheels on her sheaths so she could move around with it better. Yay! When Kenshan sees me beat up all those people I'm going to be a Chunin for sure, said Yuichiro, giving them a foxy grin, though you couldn't see it due to the mask. Sense at ease. See it, no. I'm sure he will, however, right now you must rest for the remainder of the day, said Kimimaro while heading to the door to leave them to their own time. Time he hoped they didn't use to kill each other. Where are you going? Said Yumichika, wondering where the albino was headed since he told them to relax. I need to find Sabaka no Temari to invite her to talk with Kenpachi-sama, said Kimimaro, knowing that while he was getting her, Hanai was out to speak with Hinata. With that, the albino left to find the fan user from Suna, knowing that she would be glad to see him after all this time since she didn't get a chance earlier. Elsewhere, a single female ANBU from Mist was speaking to her Mizukage and Water Daimyo about the important recon information that she had done. With her newly created Red Water unit, the Mist ANBU Captain Soi Fong kneeled given her report on all the tactical info her team acquired. Are they that weakened? Said Rin, surprised how her old village had gotten so soft after what happened with the fourth's death, making all the people arrogant, thinking they were invincible. From the information I gather with all that has happened, the Hidden Leaf village is now less in terms of strength than it was in the aftermath of the Sound/Sand invasion 3 years ago. Sandaim had been trying to keep peace when he was reinstated until his new successor from among the Leaf was chosen to take over the role he had retired from, said Soi Fong, handing over the Third's private journal from deep within the archives. Reading it from where the Third left off after Zangetsu attacked and was sealed, Rin couldn't help but gasp at what she read. Day 1, my reinstatement. It has been several days since the sealing, and I find myself bound with a great pain in my heart knowing that I did not perform the sealing of the Kyuubi instead of Minato. Even more so that I lack the necessary fortitude to protect his son from those who would try to harm him, thinking he is the monster they all fear will come back to kill them all. They are fools, plain and simple. I know that those that oppose my law will leak the information to shadows lurking beneath the surface of the village. They want an outlet for the sadness, and they will use this innocent boy for it, and it is the fact that I can't protect him is one of my greatest failures in life. Not because I lack the will of fire I had come to embrace in my younger years, but deep down, and Kami helped May, a part of me hates the boy too, to some degree. I am ashamed of myself for thinking like that, knowing that while I love the boy with every fiber of my being, a little part of the darkness that all of the village will soon feel for him is there as well. Sarutobi Sandaim. Rin was shocked at the late Fire Shadow's writing that he himself had hated Naruto, and that it was possibly that hate that stopped Naruto, to some degree, from being seen as a hero. Fearing what to read next, she flipped through more pages and read on the Third's private moments. Year 6, my near failure. I saw through my crystal ball the orphanage caretaker try to strangle Naruto with her bare hands, calling him those horrible names that my law strictly forbids, and over a thing like asking for some food. Food that the bitch of a woman denied the boy apparently for 3 days straight, not wanting him to reach his full potential. My ANBU that I assigned to watch him don't seem to care what happens to the boy, and the crueler children will see him, when he is older, as a target they can prey on without repercussions. Had it not been for the intervention of a female chunin named Kurenai, who wanted to play with the children there that day, I would have failed to protect the boy. I punished that bitch of a caretaker accordingly and executed her for her crimes before the council could try to overrule my decision. However, word gets out and the possibility of Naruto surviving is slimming further, as no one wants to help the boy out of fear of being labeled a demon lover, as one newly demoted Jounin to Genin called the boy. I nearly fail Minato and Kushina, but I will make amends for it now and show those old fools why I am called the god of shinobi. Sarutobi Sandaim. At least he got his act together, though personally the old geezer was 6 years too damn late, said Rin, showing Yujito the journal, which caused the demon vessel to let out a feline hiss at the passage she read. When the leaf burns to the ground, I'm going to enjoy seeing those fools' faces as they burn into ashes and dust in the wind, said Yujito, with Soi Fong nodding in agreement with the two leaders. Hyuga compound 20 minutes later. Hinata looked at herself in the full-body mirror, and at the long and getting longer braids that went down the front of her. When she first met the spirit in her sword, she in all honesty a little freaked out, but it ended when the woman that she now took the appearance of told her that she would become a great healer. It was a secret fact that Hinata's mother was one of the best medics around since Tsunade herself in her prime before the fear of blood kicked in. In fact, had the demands of the Hyuga politics forced her to stay within the walls of Konoha, she could have been given the title of Sannin, or at the very least the head doctor at the hospital. The Hyuga elders had put a stop to that, saying that such a prestige clan such as theirs was beyond such things, and that using their eyes to help others was beneath them. A knock at the door caught Hinata's attention, and the door slid open slightly before a navy blue hand with black-orange stripes holding what appeared to be an invitation. Silently, the figure that Hinata suspected was Hanaya placed the invitation down in front of her door on her side of the room before shutting it without a word. Hinata was not surprised due to all the activity in the village. Silent beat talk when it came to secrecy in regards to certain things. Dear Hyuga Hinata, you are cordially invited to meet the Shikage of Shinigami no Sato this evening for a private dinner. However, this meeting is secret and must be kept from those you do not trust, and even from some of those you do, including your own family. The dinner will be 7 p.m. sharp. A Shinigami shinobi will arrive to take you to the Shikage, who is looking forward to speaking with you soon. Sincerely, Kagaya Kimimaro, second in command. Hinata was ecstatic knowing that she was going to meet her Kenpachi-kun again, so after looking at her clock she only had 4 hours to prepare and get ready. She then went and threw herself almost literally into her closet for something that would show him she cared. Hokage Tower, Hokage's office 20 minutes later. Do you think it's him under that disguise? Said Jiraiya, wondering what his teammate thought of the whole situation with Naruto. I don't know. Kakashi told me that Kagaya Kimimaro, the one that had been supposedly killed by Gaara and Lee, is still alive, said Tsunade, looking at the shocked super pervert at this news, having read the report Gaara gave to Tsunade as one of the last official acts concerning the Leaf's former alliance with Suna. How did he find that out? Said Jiraiya, wondering how that man, who from Gaara and Lee's report that the man was fanatically devoted to Orochimaru, could serve the Shikage. During that incident at the Hokage graveyard, the man bearing the description of one of the shinobi in charge, who was standing before us as the Shikage's translator, spoke to his partner in crime. This Sajin character apparently referred to him as Kimimaro as they fled with the coffins and Kushina's urn, said Tsunade, trying her best to hold in the tears from losing her loved ones from this place yet again, only this time under different circumstances. I could talk to the Shikage if you want. Try to convince him to hand the coffins back over to Konoha in exchange for something else, said Jiraiya, hoping that would help ease her suffering. I will not have them talked about as if they were nothing but pieces of furniture, you old pervert, said Tsunade, now angry at the man for even considering such a thing. Then let me go talk to him. Maybe I can figure out what's going inside that head of his, said Jiraiya, seeing the small nod from Tsunade before Shizen came in looking worried. Tsunade-sama, please come quick. Kakashi-san is in critical condition, said Shizen, as she had tried to help the man into the hospital before his injuries became too severe. Great, more bad news, said Tsunade, wondering now how the third kept doing what he did in his old age when he came out of retirement. Konoha Hospital 10 minutes later. When Shizen said Kakashi was in critical condition, she wasn't saying it in a worried yet playful manner that Tsunade was used to. The slug Sannin originally thought she did when a woman beat that man up for reading that perverted book of his when in front of them. Now the female Hokage saw that Kakashi was in serious pain with lots of wounds, bruises, broken bones, and several concussions worth of mental damage to his skull. What the hell happened to you? Said Tsunade, not liking the man for what he did to her little brother, much less the man himself. Damn that stupid Hippocratic oath all doctors have to take. I encountered a shinobi from Shinigami heading away from the direction of the Hyuga compound and believed he was spying on it to steal one of its members like Kyuubi did years ago. When I confronted him about it, he denied it and got into a strange taijutsu-like stance I have never seen before that even fooled my Sharingan eye. It was as if his arm stretched out several inches before hitting me right in the face, even though my Sharingan told me it wasn't going to hit me, said Kakashi, frowning as he replayed everything in his head and how he was so utterly beaten by the demon mask-wearing man. So that single ninja took you down, sensei? Said Sasuke with mild interest, wondering just how strong the Shinigami were if they could withstand the power of an Uchiha. Yes. Be careful and stay away from Sasuke. You still need more training before you can face that one, much less the Shikage himself, said Kakashi, knowing that even with his help Sasuke would still be at the mercy of what seemed to be Sharingan-proof shinobi village. We'll see if a simple ninja can stand up to the power of an Uchiha, said Sasuke before leaving his face holding a brooding scowl like all the previous days before thinking that he was the superior being. I almost hope he dies if it weren't for the pride of the Leaf Village, thought Tsunade before taking care of Kakashi's injuries, knowing he was going to be out of it for some time. The Royal Leaf Hotel, hours later, Shinigami Village's personal floor. Hinata was blushing scarlet wave after scarlet wave in anticipation at seeing her sweet love again after 3 long years. The Hyuga girl was now quite tall for her age, with some people mistaking her to be 17, or even 18 years old. She wore a navy blue kimono that showed her figure well, revealing that she was indeed a well-developed woman, but just not enough to turn a man into a pervert. Though the line did seem to narrow slightly if she bent down to pick up something from the ground and a certain pair of blue eyes stared at certain parts of her. If anything, such a thought made Hinata go even redder. For Kami's sake, she even made a cherry right now look like a sour apple. Kimimaro was a step and half ahead of her to lead her to the designated room, which for security reasons was the last one on the left upon the rows of rooms they took up. Finally approaching the required door, the two shinobi guards received a nod from Kimimaro in regards to the silent question about Hinata before the right one knocked on the door 3 times and opened the door several seconds later. Upon further inspection, as Hinata entered after bowing to the guards, she saw that the room itself was dimly lit with 2 chairs and a table. Kimimaro moves in front of the Hyuga girl to announce her to his master for this special occasion. Presenting Hyuga, Hinata of the Hyuga clan, said Kimimaro, bowing to Kenpachi before leaving the room, while Hinata took several steps towards the shadowy form of her love. "Hello, Hinata-hime. You have truly become the beautiful woman that I knew you would be," said Kenpachi, making Hinata blush at his words before his hand gestured for her to sit, which she did. The meals set before them were a variety of several exotic dishes put together, and they began eating them in the barely lit darkness. However, despite this darkness, it was calm, quiet, and secure for her, like a couple should feel on a date when alone eating a romantic dinner. "I had longed to see you again, Kenpachi-kun." "I'm glad I have," said Hinata calmly, though with a tad bit of nervousness in the beginning for breaking the beautiful silence. A shadowy shark-like smile appeared on Kenpachi's face that was barely seeable even to Hinata, who was half tempted to use her bloodline to see him through the darkness. As if sensing her thought, Kenpachi snaps his fingers once and the lights illuminated the whole room, revealing the plush suite that he was in along with the large bed meant for 2. This time Kenpachi decided not to wear his mask, knowing that doing so was an insult to his love. If Hinata wasn't so mesmerized by Kenpachi's face, she would have gotten a nosebleed from the perverted thoughts running through her head. To Hinata, his face was strong, rugged, and the kind that knew what battle was, judging from the scar coming down his left eye. "I'm glad to have you here, Hinata-hime. I have missed hearing the sound of your angelic voice for so long that at times I thought I would go insane," said Kenpachi, rising from his chair and closing the gap around them, lifting Hinata off her chair into his strong muscular arms. Hinata felt small compared to the man of a giant she loved as he held her, while her head rested on his muscular chest, holding him with all the love she had for him. He felt like smooth steel covered in smooth leather as she massaged his rib cage as her hands went under his black blood-red coat and shirt he wore. "Go, man! Go! Yeah, my vessel is going to have some fun tonight. With any luck, she's a screamer, and judging from my kid's fantasies, he loves a screamer," thought Zaraki Kenpachi, laughing his head off within the mindscape, while Zangetsu put headphones on his ears and listened to Rob Zombie's song Super Beast. "Kenpachi-kun, is it true you are in an arranged marriage with Sabaka no Temari?" said Hinata, not wanting to spoil the mood, but for all purposes of knowing she had to hear what she already knew from his mouth. "Yes. Are you upset?" said Kenpachi, looking down at her with some difficulty due to his massive height. "I was a little when I found out from my father. Why didn't you tell me in your letter?" said Hinata, looking up at him with tears in her eyes. "Because I was afraid that if I wrote those words, that after you read that single line would have destroyed my letter without hearing the explanation. I had my loyal shinobi Toshiro inform your father after Hanaya reported to him that your father did not hate me like all the other villagers. I had only entered the arranged marriage under the stipulation that you would be the one I married and sired children with first, since you are my first love," said Kenpachi, not wanting to talk to Hinata about this, but rather hold her deeper into his ever-loving embrace. "I know, it's just that I don't want to be a third wheel if you start to love her more than me," said Hinata immediately, hating herself for saying such horrible things. "You? Becoming a third wheel? Hyuga, Hinata, I'm disappointed in you for saying such a thing about yourself. Gaara cares for his sister with all his heart, and she cares for me as I do for both you and her, for all the same qualities you each possess that are similar yet different at the same time," said Kenpachi, holding a slightly crying Hinata in his arms before kissing her on the forehead, remembering his recent talk with Temari few hours prior to this. Flashback earlier. Temari was practically skipping her way to see her future husband to be in the near future, as the shinobi, who summoned her to his room, had informed her of meeting with him. She first thought that he wanted to start early on getting to know each other better as husband and wife, but shook those perverted thoughts away, remembering that stipulation that prevented that from officially happening. Temari entered the room, finding that Kenpachi, as she found out that he called himself, no longer wore the dark robes and hood over his face, though the fox skull mask was still on his face. "Ah, Temari-chan, how good it is to see you again. I haven't been able to be in your ever-beautiful presence since I spoke with Gaara regarding the alliance between both our two villages," said Kenpachi, removing his mask so she could see his face as she did when he showed Gaara who was the founder of the hidden Shinigami village. And I have missed you, Kenpachi-kun. I can't wait for us to be married even if I can't be the first one to give you kids. Still, being married to you is a good start to that path that will one day allow us to have children, said Temari, as she now embraced him in a full affectionate hug. Don't forget Hinata is a part of this too. I don't want either of you fighting over me in hopes I will favor either one of you more than the other, said Kenpachi, as he remembered Temari's ever-competitive nature from the last Chunin exams. Tenten remembered all too well from the prelims. Hinata-san knows of the stipulation? Does she agree? Said Temari, hopefully knowing that the only thing standing in her way of being an Uzumaki was Hinata's decision. I am going to talk to her in a few hours, so I hope to get a positive answer from her soon on the matter, said Kenpachi, looking at the woman from Suna looking at him with hope-filled eyes. I know Hinata-san will agree. She loves you just as much as I do, said Temari, giving Kenpachi one last hug before leaving towards the door, swaying her hips as she went. One more thing, Temari, in case Gaara hasn't mentioned it yet. When the fighting part of the exam starts, our group will sit together in our own private kage booth on the opposite side of the Hokage. Gaara will be sitting beside me on my left with Yujito-san, as the still mysterious Mizukage will be on my right. As you know, Rin has become the new water daimyo, and will also join us later on to prove that we have an alliance with each other. It will give the people from Kumo, IWA, and Konoha a lot to talk about. Then halfway into the tournament I reveal myself to them all, making them regret the day they started to hate me like they did. I intend to make them remember the very fear they felt when Zangetsu attacked by unleashing my fury on their arrogant souls, said Kenpachi, licking his lips in a very predator-like fashion in anticipation of a fight. I look forward to that moment, Kenpachi-kun, said Temari, smiling a genuine smile at her love before leaving the room to talk to her brother more about the upcoming exam. End flashback. I'm sorry I ever doubted you, Kenpachi-kun, said Hinata as she enjoyed the clear and beautiful sound of her love's strong heartbeat as she placed her ear against it. It's all right, Hinata, you have nothing to be ashamed of. And for the record, I have never been ashamed of anything you've done, and I never will, said Kenpachi, leaning down and planting a solid kiss on her lips. Hinata didn't know what unseen perverted force drove her on for the next 4 to 6 hours, but before she knew it she went from simply kissing Kenpachi on the lips to laying on the large bed, completely naked, next to one naked Uzumaki Kenpachi, and sighing contentedly into her lover's chest as she slept. As for Kenpachi, all he could wonder was how Hinata's back could move at such an angle and not be paralyzed from the waist down. Regardless, it was one of the small handful of moments that he truly felt happy in life, but even more so with his soul feeling that same happiness as well. Hinata-chan, I swear on my soul you never have to be ashamed of yourself ever again, thought Kenpachi before his mind fell into the land of dreams filled with him and Hinata enjoying life and having their kids playing without a worry in the world. The hotel would later receive complaints about the noises in the morning, thus burying the royal leaf heavily in mountains upon mountains of paperwork. Next day, the official start of the Chunin exams Forest of Death entrance. All of the Kages approached the entrance to the Forest of Death with their prized genin teams, each with their own uniqueness, though considering the number of genin from the hidden Shinigami village proved quite intimidating. Shinigami Genin Team No. 1 aka Team Soul Reapers, which were Madarame Ikaku, Kusajishi Yachiru, and Ayasegawa Yumichika, with their sensei being, rumored, the Shikage himself. Shinigami Genin Team No. 2 aka Team Anawabanshu, which were Hanaya, Makamachi Masao, and Shinamori Aoshi, with their sensei being the legendary Kashiwazaki Ninji. Shinigami Genin Team No. 3 aka Team Manslayer, which were Sita Sojiro, Yukishiro Enishi, and Himura Kenshin, with their sensei being Hiko Seijiro. Shinigami Genin Team No. 4 aka Team Shinsengumi, which were Okita Sashi, Udo Jin-e, and Hajime Saito, with their sensei being Hijikata Toshizo. Shinigami Genin Team No. 5 aka Team Sekahotai, which were Sagara Sanosuke, Takane Megumi, and Myojin Yahiko, with the sensei being Sagara Sozo. Those were just some of the teams that the Shikage had before the gates, looking into the Forest of Death without fear, with their eyes full of confidence. They knew passing wasn't the real objective in being in Konoha, since they would all be promoted when they returned home, but rather a part of their Shikage's plans. The real test was making those hostile to them realize that the Shinigami were not pushovers, and when this part of the exam was over everyone would see it too. We better avoid the Shinigami teams, said Ino to her teammates, sensing a great deal of power coming off of each individual on the teams. I think we should focus on the IWA and Kumo teams so we can face the Shinigami later in the preliminaries and finals to test their flames of youth. YOSH, said Lee, who was quieted down by Kurenai with a slap to the back of his head and gave one to Guy as well to prevent him from going into his usual tirade. Kenpachi-kun, I do everything I can to prove I am worthy of being your wife, even if you already believe it in your heart. I also need to prove it to myself, thought Hinata, who was now wearing black shirt and pants with white lines along the robes around the shirt that complementing her figure as well as hiding it at the same time. Even her long hair was braided down in the front rather than back, giving her an appearance of innocence that turned the heads of many boys her age. When the Hyuga girl, now turned woman, originally awoke from her ever so comfortable position with her head on her lover's chest, she realized that if she didn't get home soon there was going to be a lot of panic within her home. If they found out just what she did and who she did it with, the elders would branch her with the caged bird seal or that other seal they had been working on for when she was married to Uchiha Sasuke and Inuzuka Kiba. It didn't help that the clock closest to Hinata told her that she had less than 15 minutes to get home before Niji knocked on her door to awaken her from her sleep. If she didn't answer, then Niji would get worried and open the door or use his Byakugan to see through it only to find she wasn't there. She started imagining what their expressions were like if and when they found out about this intimacy with her Kenpachi. Hinata could not help but giggle a little, which only was noticed by Kurenai, who decided to hold off for questioning until later, though whether or not she would like it she did not know. When Kurenai had first asked what forced her to go for such a change in clothing, Hinata had to force down the blushing at the memory of waking up to her love, realizing they had done it that very night. It did not help that Unohana Retsu had given Hinata a serenity-like smile that, while gentle, was also mischievous all the same if you read in between the lines, and that the young girl named Yuchira had come in just when she finished getting dressed. The girl looked between both her and Kenchan, as the fox girl called him, and before Hinata knew, Yuchiru started calling her Mami-chan really loud as she hugged the shocked Hyuga near into fainting. Had Kenpachi not awakened at the fox girl's shout and let out a laugh at Hinata's reaction, his poor Haim would have fainted and missed the Chunin exams, making her team fail. Hinata was glad to finally be able to do such a thing with the man she loved, but at the same time was silently disappointed. Not in Kenpachi's performance. No man has as much stamina as he was tall in height, and big in other places as well. The source of disappointment was that Hinata had to use the anti-pregnancy jutsu Kurenai taught her should she do something like that with any man. As if Hinata would be so shallow to do that with just any person. Hinata was snapped out of her thoughts when Enko and Ibiki had arrived with a handful of ANBU each behind them in full battle-ready gear. She then realized this new version of the Forest of Death would be much more intimidating than the one she was in 3 years ago, and Hinata proceeded to grip the hilt of her sword to keep her confidence up. All right, you stupid bastards, listen up because I don't like to repeat myself. My name is Marino Ibiki, and I'll be in charge of this part of the Chunin exam. For those teams who are here before, this is the Forest of Death, and the objective is to get to the tower that is located in the center of the forest itself. The tower itself is the safety zone, if you will. That will be like when you enter the borders of your country knowing that the enemy will not and cannot pursue you. The objective in this exam is to simply survive and get to the safety zone before your enemies, which will be the other teams that get you first. You have a total of 4 days to get to the tower or your team will be disqualified, thus allowing these ANBU behind me to enter the forest and retrieve you in order to prevent any and all animals or possibly giant insects from killing you. Any of you jack-offs have questions? Said Ibiki, looking around, noticing that Team 1 from Shinigami had a hand raised from the wolf-skulled masked shinobi. Yeah, I got one. Why are you making this so damn easy? Said Ikaku, chuckling behind his mask while the other Shinigami teams did the same, who clearly were going to enjoy this. You're badasses now, but if and when you get through here you will think twice before entering here. It's the stuff nightmares are made of, said Enko, giving off a sadistic grin while twirling a kunai in her hand, wishing she could cut them and lick their blood. Please, lady, we've seen what nightmares are made of, and this Forest of Death, as you all call it, is not it by far, I promise you, said Enishi, wearing a tiger skull mask, his hand twitching for his sword to kill them, but a near invisible look from their sensei stopped him. Alright, enough talk. Each team goes to a gate and starts running like your soul depends on it, said Ibiki, grabbing the flare gun from Enko before shooting it into the air to signify the start of the exams. As the teams left, only the Kages, Jounin senseis, and their bodyguards remained. Ah, so you are the infamous Shikage I keep hearing about, said Ikamaru Jin, the newly made Yandame Reikage of Kuma, walking towards the group with a strange grin on his albino white face. Jin watched as the man in dark robes spoke the unknown language that graced his ears before turning to Kimimaro, who turned to address the Yondaime Reikage. And you are the Reikage of Kumo, who killed the Sandaime during your little uprising if Shikage-sama recalls correctly, said Kimimaro, feeling his master's rage at the Kage slowly growing at the face of the grinning man before him. Please Shikage-sama, you make it sound like I wanted to kill the old man for the title when I was the one that was going to take his place regardless if I rebelled against him in the end. All I did was speed things up so I could have the title sooner rather than later. Don't you agree, Sachikage-sama? Said Jin, looking at the man now walking up to him with glasses and a calm look on his face that hid for the most part the cruelty that was beneath it. While I must admit it is one way to be a Kage of a village, it did seem to be quite bold all things considered, since you were the next in line to be the Reikage. I imagine the poor Sandaime Reikage didn't take your ambitious assault very well due to him being on the receiving end of your blade, said Aizen Sosuke the fifth Tsuchikage with his one and only bodyguard behind him, looking at the group as a whole yet not looking at the same time. Again, my actions are taken out of context, but I still don't see the problem in expressing myself towards the Sandaime Reikage in such a manner, said Jin with his grin increasing even more, making everyone around him not loyal to him on edge. Then perhaps your successor won't mind doing the same to you when it's your turn to step down, Reikage-sama, said Yujito behind her mask, but his rage at the man was beyond comprehension at the moment. The newly elected Mizukage graces us with her presence, said Jin, making those around them who didn't know seem shocked that another female Kage had appeared. Tsuchikage-sama, we have to go. It is getting far too crowded for my liking, and I wish to get you away from those who might try to cause unnecessary bloodshed, said Ken-Aim Tosin, who despite being blind could sense danger almost everywhere around them. Of course, Tosin-san, I understand. As my faithful bodyguard said, I must go now and await the news of my Genin team's victory. Good day, Shikage-sama, Mizukage-sama, and Reikage-sama, said Aizen before leaving, not even acknowledging Gaara or his siblings before leaving with Tosin back to their hotel. I must go as well, though not for too long, since my teams I know will do exceptionally well since they were trained by me, said the Reikage, leaving the remaining two Kages to their own devices. Gaara scowled at the smiling Psycho before walking over to the other two Kages with the Water Daimyo Rin along with the Mist Ambu Captain Soi Fang not far from them. Charming little bastard, isn't he? Said Temari, looking slightly at Kenpachi in his dark robes of the Shikage, wishing to see him without it. I sense there is something wrong with their Genin teams. They are unnatural even for us, and I don't like it, said Yujito, sensing Tsunade and Jiraiya looking at them not far away with suspicious eyes. We will have to deal with them later. For now, let's just deal with what's in front of us, said Kenpachi in a whispery tone so low that not even an Inuzuka could have heard him. I will have Baki find out more about Aizen before the finals start next month. Until then, we must remain sharp and look for more enemies that lurk further beyond deep in the shadows, said Gaara, making many raise their eyebrows at his words. That was deep, said Sakan from his position, watching the Kazakage of Sun walk away with his siblings, wondering how the boy could think with such depth like that. No one asked you, asshole, said Tayuya, who scowled at Sakan behind her bird skull mask, but stopped when her Shikage turned and stared at her to mentally tell her that now was not the time. Elsewhere. Danzo-sama, everything is ready, said a Root Anbu ninja bowing before his leader. Good. Tell them to engage the Shinigami ninja whenever the opportunity presents itself, and if possible bring them back alive for our own version of interrogation, said Danzo, not liking the fact that there were too many Kages around Konoha at the moment, along with the current one at that. Soon, when Konoha was in a panic looking for a hero, Danzo would appear with his Root Ninja and smite the enemies that were in their walls. With the vast majority of the council supporting him along with the villagers themselves, all he had to do was either kill Tsunade or prove she was unfit to be one, thus giving him control over Konoha as its new Hokage until Sasuke was ready. The Uchiha prodigy was a lot like him when he was younger, and only wanted power to rule over all those around him with an iron fist. All Danzo had to do was remove the competition and those that would not support him throughout the chaos that would come from these Chunin exams. Sure, it would cripple Konoha in the short run, but eventually the populace would be overrun with Uchiha offspring if he gave enough women to the sole ruler of the clan to populate it with the Sharingan bloodline to fully make up for the loss in the ranks. With this new growth, they would attract the more darker clients that Konoha normally didn't take up despite wanting to pay more for a job well done. The old fool Sarutobi Sandaime had made the leaf soft under his rule and made such things necessary due to his policy on protecting those who are precious and all the ridiculous nonsense that went with it. The Leaf Village was a place where dealers of death were born to kill, not save others unless they were the paying clients, or there was a heavy reward involved in the rescue itself. If not, well, let the weak villages around his newly imperialized Konoha try and fail, while the Leaf grew stronger under his might and the belief of the strong feeding off the weak failures in life. Danzo-sama, we have just received news from one of the teams, said a Root Anbu, who kneeled before the one-eyed and armed man. That was fast. The Shinigami are not as strong as they made themselves out to be, said Danzo, chuckling at how he would use those bodies to humiliate the Shikage and hang them in the village square for all to see. Not exactly, sir. They are sending a distress signal on our headset via a secret channel. The teams we sent in to strike are being attacked and wiped out, said the Root Anbu, showing fear in his voice, not knowing how his master would take it. How many teams have we lost? Said Danzo, scowling at this information, knowing that some of the Root ninja he had in place around the Forest of Death were some of the best he had ever trained. Over half, Danzo-sama. We killed the waterfall ninja entering the exam shortly after they entered the Forest of Death, but soon after that the team responsible was taken out. When a nearby team was sent to investigate, they too were destroyed in a mere matter of moments, and soon other calls came of their teams being slaughtered, said the ANBU Root ninja, looking up at the leader of the group to find the man was scowling deeper at this news. So the Shinigami have backbone, do they? Fine, we'll focus on other matters. Pull the rest of the men out and proceed to get ready for stage 2, said Danzo, who saw his loyal shinobi bow his head before leaving into the shadows to carry out his mission. Danzo leaned back in his chair, thinking of how to deal with the Shinigami shinobi, who, from what information he was getting, were not the wimps he thought they were. There was no doubt there would be severe backlash from this move if the bodies were taken before Jiraiya and the Hokage herself addressed this matter. Even the council couldn't protect him in this, and Danzo knew that it would make him a marked man no matter what. Still, there was a chance that the Shikage would pin this on Tsunade or Jiraiya without even knowing the full details of Root itself. For the moment, Danzo could and would do nothing except keep his men and his spies within the hidden village awake to alert him of any problems that may be a threat to him. I have waited this long to have my dream fulfilled. I will not have it delayed any longer, thought Danzo, his face a snarl with his fist in his only arm clenched in rage. Chapter 11, Chunin Exams Part 2. The 4 days spent in the Forest of Death was hell for the Leaf Ninjas along with the other teams from the other villages except the Shinigami teams, who thanks to several scouts placed prior to the exams knew exactly where to go. It wasn't hard to do since all they had to do was head straight for the tower without being killed by any of the more bloodlust-filled teams from the various villages. Some of the rookies had been engaged upon by Kumo and IWA teams on several occasions only to push the teams back. However, the fact that Root A and BU were attacking and impeding the Shinigami ninjas' progress was causing quite an annoyance among them. After getting together for a secret joint team meeting, it was decided that a public example had to be made to one of them. Not that having so many body bags filled with dead Root A and BU shinobi wasn't already a big public example, mind you, but unfortunately such a thing wasn't enough. What the Death God shinobi had in mind involved making a statement to Konoha that cheaters never win on the grounds that a masked Root A and BU secretly approached Team 7 and showed them the quickest way to the tower. Kiba and Sasuke originally objected to the approach, but it was stopped when the man told them by doing this they could show up the other teams and allow them to rest while the others came in worn out. Sakura had no problem with that since she didn't like this place any more than she did the last time she was in it. Her lack of training had made her weak, with her only real strength being chakra control along with a few weak jutsus and the ability to resist weak genjutsus. When Team 7 left the route, ANBU was knocked out by a surprise attack by Yahiko, who then tied him up and had Sanosuke pick up the man before heading to the tower. Chunin Exam Tower, the 4th day. The arena used for preliminary fights was filled quite largely at this point before all the teams were accounted for, with Team 7 of Konoha being the first to arrive. Of course the council wanted to be there to rub it in like salt on a wound, stating that Team 7 was the model ninja team of Konoha. Despite their best efforts, however, the Shikage did not once lash out at them with his still unknown tongue or unleash his killer intent at being outdone by his enemies as they fully expected him to. Hell, the man didn't even try to turn his head towards them when they tried talking to him from a distance, and had it not been the occasional talking between the Shikage and his translator while the Death Four looked around occasionally for potential threats to their death shadow. Soon the Konoha, Suna, Mist, Kumo, and IWA shinobis arrived looking a little torn up, but still nothing serious that could prove life-threatening at the end of the day. Well, it seems the great Shinigami village isn't so great after all if they can't get past the forest of death. Right, Haruno-san? Said Inuzuka-tsum, turning to her fellow council member, who like her twisted her lip up into a cruel sneer as they looked at the hooded figure of the Shikage. Yes. Of course, I had no doubt that my sweet angel Sakura could get through it a second time with your strong son Kiba, along with our prodigy, and future 6th Hokage Uchiha Sasuke, said Haruno Yasha, eyeing the Shikage viciously at Konoha's little, but notable victory over them. I'm afraid we will have to continue the exams without them. I apologize, Shikage-sama, for so many of your teams losing so early in the beginning, said Tsunade in her Hokage robes with Jiraiya beside her, gauging the Shikage for whatever reaction he may give off. All the man did was stand still and didn't move a muscle the entire time. Since your teams are not here, Shikage-sama, it would be best if you and your little group leave Konoha and don't show your face until the next, said Yasha before the door on the opposite side of the room was smashed open, sending rubble everywhere. Sorry we're late, but it's kind of difficult to get through this place carrying body bags full of these bastards that tried to jump us and try have one of their teams cheat, said Ikika, coming in with nearly all the Shinigami team's members covered in blood and weapons still drawn. Nearly all due to Genie having been cut down by Saito due to the now deceased warrior's bloodlust and urge to kill, which were constantly becoming a disgrace to the very name of Shinsengumi as of late. You're too late. You didn't get here on time. You are all disqualified, said Tsum, growling at the Shinigami shinobi with everything she had. Shut up, you ugly woman, for a dog. It is because of people like you that help create such an ugly world, said Yumichika lazily before parting some hair covering his mask. Besides, you have no room to talk since your son's team cheated, said Kenshin behind his dragon skull mask with his long red hair no longer tied down due to the fighting. How dare you! You are just jealous because my son's team got to the tower on the very first day while it took all of you the entire 4 days to reach here, said Tsum, now looking as smug as ever when she looked at the Shinigami shinobis before her. Bitch, a lady's son had outside help. Tell them, Feather-chan, said Yuichiro, now getting the attention of everyone in the room. What did you call me, you little runt? Yelled Tsum, growling fiercely, and looked ready only to stop when a great deal of killer intent came from the Shikage, Yuichiro's teammates, and fellow shinobi, each giving her a look that said back the hell off, bitch, which was exactly what Tsum did for the moment. Despite what she called you, which I personally feel is appropriate given your behavior, there is still the matter of the route A and B we encountered trying to halt us from getting here in the first place, said Aoshi, snapping his fingers, and Shinigami parted, revealing a large pile of body bags with the masked heads sticking out. My men, said Danzo, only to realize he had been caught in self-incrimination. Not only that, but we have the poor bastard that helped Team 7 get here so fast, and I think you all damn well know him considering his past history with Konoha, said Enishi, who stomped his foot down heavily once before Sanosuke appeared carrying an unconscious, tied up, and masked shinobi before dumping him before the Shikage. Wake up and introduce yourself, Mizuki, said Hajime Sato before stepping heavily on the man's shoulder, breaking the joints connecting the shoulder and the rest of the body together. Needless to say, it made the man wake up screaming like a little girl. It can't be. Mizuki is a traitor to Konoha and was put in prison, said Tsunade before she turned to the council and Danzo, who stayed as calm as ever. We reviewed the evidence against the man, Hokage-sama, and felt that given the demon, and a demon lover like Iruka was involved, we felt their story was unreliable at best. We had to drop the charges in the interest of justice to this wrongfully convicted man, said Danzo, all too sweetly for Tsunade and Jiraiya's taste. I told that demon brat I would get my revenge, and since I was freed from prison I have been living a life of greatness, said Mizuki, his mask having finally been removed by Kenshin's sword. Still, cheating in the exam is illegal no matter what, and no village has any right to play favorites at such a crucial part of the exam. With your permission, Shikage-sama, I would like to kill this scum that now lies at your feet, said Saito, readying his sword into the Gatatsu stance, aiming it at the man's neckline. You can't do that if you have no authority, and to do this now would be an act of war with the leaf, said Mizuki, not wanting to lose his life yet, as he still had value to Danzo. Just as the route A and B we killed had no right killing waterfall shinobi before going after us, said Enishi, cracking his neck, itching to get into a fight right about now. Should we do anything, Tsunade? Whispered Jiraiya, knowing they could fight this if the slug princess gave the order. No. Either way, Mizuki is going to die, so why not now, said Tsunade, whispered back to Jiraiya, who nodded his head, knowing one way or another Mizuki was going to die. Before anyone could make any further argument, everyone now turned their attention to the Shikage, who raised his right hand turned into a fist with his thumb out, bringing to the left side. He paused for a moment at his neckline and then moved it across to his right side again before bringing it down to his side. Understood, Shikage-sama, said Saido, who pressed his foot into Mizuki's spine to keep the man from squirming under him before he released his attack on the man, killing him instantly. Shikage-sama, we the council is hereby placing you and all of your genin teams under arrest for the murder of Konoha Shinobi, said Danzo, summoning several Root A and BU to the scene only for Tsunade to stamp her foot down, making the arena shake. I am the Hokage here, Danzo, not you. Mizuki was a traitor to Konoha, no matter what you say, and unless you want me to disqualify Team 7 right now for cheating, I suggest you keep such illegal actions to yourself, said Tsunade, glaring at the rest of the council to keep them all in line. This isn't over, Hokage-sama, said Danzo, not willing to let this matter rest. It's over if I say it's over, said Tsunade, who would have continued on more had it not been for the sudden increase of killer intent coming from the Shikage once more. Why was the Shikage releasing killer intent? Because a certain dog boy was leering at one Hyuga Hinata while thinking perverted thoughts. Thoughts that did not sit well with the Shikage or Hinata herself, and if it weren't for the fact that the current situation made the man angry as it was, his secret would be out. Perhaps we should continue on with the exams, Hokage-sama, said Yujito, looking at the startled fire shadow, knowing that the woman once held the very same look when she sensed the man become angry. Yes, of course, Mizuki-sama. Considering the nature of what transpired in the Forest of Death, the Shinigami Genin teams will not be stopped from continuing unless they choose to, said Tsunade, getting unfriendly looks from her fellow council members, but considering their actions in the past, she didn't really care at this point. Are you kidding? We came all this way here for a good old-fashioned fight, and we'll be damned before Kami before we back out of this now, said Ikaku, smiling evilly at them before looking at the Shikage, who simply nodded in agreement. Damn straight, said Sanosuke, looking at Yahiko, who smiled along with him, that of a fighter's smile that made several of the Leaf nervous. With that resolve, Tsunade gave the same speech the third Hokage had done in the last Chunin exams Konoha had hosted. Soon after, the screen hidden behind the wall behind her appeared, and two random names were now going to appear at random to determine who fought first. Himura Kenshin vs. Yukishiro Enishi. This is some serious bullshit, yelled Tayuya, seeing the names being placed, not believing for 1 minute that those names came up random. All right, everyone, heads up, those names that were called stay here, the rest of you go up to the step to the second floor, said Enko, ignoring the demon skull-masked red-haired woman that just swore loudly. Though Enko had to admit it was some serious bullshit. Obeying, the elite Joun and the other Genin teams went to the balcony to watch the fight happen, with Sasuke waiting with anticipation and his Sharingan now active. Whatever power these fools below him had would soon be his and then turned against them later on. You guys ready? Said Enko, looking between them, seeing reluctance in their eyes due to the fact they were from the same team. Reluctantly, I am ready, said Kenshin, drawing out his sword, and Enishi readying his as well. Same here, however, no matter what happens, Kenshin, we will fight our best to show the Shikage how strong we have become under his guidance, said Enishi calmly before he took one deep breath to clear his mind. Begin, said Enko, bringing her hand down for the fight to start, and started with each warrior moving at high speed against the other, swords swinging. Everyone outside of all the shinobi in the hidden Shinigami village were surprised by their speed, as even Sasuke, much to his annoyance, could not copy what they were doing. Each time they could be seen clearly, it was for less than a second, with each warrior on the defensive or offensive, though they were going so fast it was hard to tell who would win the match. This continued for another 45 minutes as they sliced, diced, and cut everything around them, leaving slash marks on the floors and walls. It only stopped when the Shikage had commanded them to stop in the unknown language he was speaking, making many turn their heads to him as to why stop such an intense match. The Shikage says you both performed well, but at the rate you are going, one of you will give in to your bloodlust and possibly slay the other, and declare it a draw between you, said Kimimaro, speaking up for his master, knowing everyone would want an explanation. The Shikage does not decide that, the Leaf Proctor does, said Some, snarling at them for disrupting the fight. It doesn't matter, since I refuse to fight against Enishi-san anymore under the command of my Shikage, said Kenshin, now putting away his sword back into its sheath. The same with me, said Enishi, putting away his sword as well. Okay. I guess we'll call it a draw, said Anko, scratching her head confused at the outcome of the match. The two warriors simply nodded their heads towards each other before turning to face the Shikage and bow, showing their respect for the man. What a bunch of pansies, they can't even finish what they started, said Kiba, smiling a cruel smile at them going up the stairs to the balcony, receiving respectable nods from the other Shinigami teams. You shouldn't put people down like that, said a deep-voiced tall kid, with curly brown long hair that covered his one eye and was well muscled and by all means should have been considered a giant amongst his peers. Who the hell are you, Gigantir? Said Kiba, looking at this guy who was almost as tall as the Shikage if only by a few inches. My name is Sato, though my friends call me Chat. For what reason I don't know, said Sato, wearing practically all dark navy blue in terms of his ninja outfit, with only his right arm being bare of clothing while his left arm had a mist headband wrapped around it. So what's your special ability? Being freakishly tall? Said Sakura, seeing the kid as a freak of nature like her old teammate of a demon was. Considering your forehead is freakishly huge, you have really no reason to talk, said a boy with glasses wearing white with blue stripes outlining his outfit with a mist headband on his forehead. As if Kabuto wasn't bad enough in the last Chunin exams, now another four-eyed freak comes along, and from another village no less, said Sasuke, who now stared at the boy in the full belief that having eyeglasses meant poor eyesight, which meant weakness, and that was something Uchiha Sasuke did not bond well with. While your opinion is well noted, Uchiha, I would like to point out that such a thing is much better than a traitor to his own village for its very enemy, said Yuryu Ishida before pushing his glasses up with his gloved hand. You shut up! Sasuke-kun is better than anyone here! Yelled Sakura, trying to punch the daylights out of the man, only for the blow to be stopped by a strong triangular shield that absorbed the blow like it was nothing. You will stop your fighting until it's time to end these preliminaries, said a very sweet yet serious-sounding girl with long orange hair, moving into Team 7's line of sight to the left of Sato, wearing navy blue mixed with gray. And who might you be? Said Sakura, looking at the rather busty young girl before her, and already seeing her as a threat to being near Sasuke-kun. In no way Oriheim from Mist, said Oriheim, not wanting to give out any more knowledge about herself than usual since she had been warned about it by her sensei Soi Fang. Well, back off, you bimbo, Sasuke-kun is mine, said Sakura, going right into her fangirl state, trying to protect her interest. I hate it when people jump to conclusions, but for the record, Oriheim's not interested in the Uchiha traitor, said Ishida, knowing fully well just who the girl had sights on. Oh yeah, who then? Said Kiba, drooling slightly at seeing the young woman's frontal assets, only to have a large butcher's knife-shaped sword pressed around his neck. Me, you dumb ass, and unless you want me to cut your other head off for you to eat, I would suggest you not ogle her. She doesn't like it, said a boy with orange spiky hair wearing a mist headband on his right arm. Ichigo, do you have to be so rough with people? Said a girl behind him that was shorter than he was, with black hair with a mist headband loosely around her neck, her sword still in its sheath by her side. Do you have to draw pictures of things like a 2-year-old to explain complicated things to people like Rukia? Said Ichigo, which made the said girl fume, as she wasn't the best when it came to drawing things. Come on, you guys, knock it off, you're missing the fights, said Shiba Ganju, wishing the two would knock off their bickering for once. Sure enough, they were, as soon as Genin teams had been decimated quickly after two of them faced off against Kumo, and the final one lost brutally to IWA. Something is unnatural about those teams from IWA and Kumo. According to my senses from Shikaku, it's demonic, yet not as strong as mine, Yujito's, and or Kenpachi's. They must have sealed weaker demons into their ninja to give them power, and judging by the way this is going, they have done remarkably well, thought Gaara, his eyes narrowing quite dangerously, and wished he could kill the fools that had killed his genin teams. However, restraint was the better part of valor, and for the moment, Gaara would restrain himself from killing Jif only for a little while longer. The other matches soon came to be called out at random, or as random, looking to make it not look like the whole thing was fixed to weaken the other villages' chances in further competing in the exams. Shinigami Shinobi mostly faced Shinigami Shinobi, with a few exceptions in the form of Kumo, Mist, or IWA, but not the Leaf. The Shinigami Shinobi fought each other the most and tied, but some were too injured by the IWA and Kumo Shinobi in the matches that they couldn't continue to the next round. Though the same was said for Kumo and IWA, leaving only one shinobi from IWA to possibly compete in the next part of the exam. So Farikaku, Yachiru, Yumichika, Saido, Sojiro, Aoshi, Masao, and Hanaya were the remaining members of all the Shinigami Genin teams to qualify for the next part of the exam. You leave shinobis are a bunch of pussies and not facing off against one of us because you know we can kick your ass all over the place, said Tayuya, trying to be the voice for her Shikage, who was mentally thinking the same thing only with a few less choice words that the red-haired woman had used. Still, it pissed off the council, so the point clearly struck home as only Tenten, Sasuke, Hinata, Kiba, and Choji had advanced as well into the finals. Lee had lost painfully to Sojiro, whose speed far surpassed the green spandex-wearing boy with weights both on and off by having deep cuts in his legs and arms. The damage that was done required the bull-haired cut-shaped genin to quit if he ever wanted to continue ever being a ninja again when he was healed. Ino lost to Masao after a brutal taijutsu fight, which the platinum blonde lost due to her competition being the proud student of the Anawabanshu, and its leader, as they called him. Sakura lost badly to Yuichiro, who called the young Haruno girl Flatchan due to the fact that she wasn't heavy on the physical chest portions of a woman. Sakura tried to get in a few good hits only to have them miss horribly as Yuichiro proved she was faster than she looked. It left Sakura open to an attack, which the fox girl did by jumping repeatedly up and down on Sakura's spine. It was even more painful to see when they saw Yuichiro enhancing the stomping with her chakra that left a large crater in the arena floor, and were horrified to learn she also had weights on. To add insult to injury, the stomping had put a great deal of pressure to Sakura's bladder, making her relieve herself of liquid and solid waste that were in her body into her shorts before she was carried away on a stretcher. One that would soon be destroyed after dropping the Haruno girl off. The Shikage loudly clapped after the so-called fight was over, applauding his little girl at making the pink-haired bitch suffer while Yuichiro jumped up and down, and was practically dancing around at the fact that she made her dad proud of her. The pink-haired demon of a mother of that said bitch was now rushing to the medical area to comfort her angel over loss, and the sheer embarrassment their family had suffered. Oriheim beat Yahiko, though it severely drained her afterwards. Sanosuke had fought a worthy fight with Sato only to lose just barely to the boy-slash-man when it came down to a fist-fight contest. Who knew the kid, who used one eye while the other was covered with hair, could alter his arm into something like that and win no less? Megumi soon forfeited when her match was up against Ichigo, since her field was that of a medical specialist in the group and not of combat, but the orange-haired youth told her it was all right. Hinata had the unfortunate fate of fighting twice against both Rukia and Ganju, who she defeated using the family gentle fist style. It was difficult on account of the fact that she had to prevent the others from seeing all of the advanced training she had done, though she did have to reveal her protection of the 8 trigrams 64 palms technique. Though it was a small price to pay, and in the end her love clapped at her performance of defending herself against Ganju's explosive attacks and water jutsus he unleashed upon her. Sasuke and Kiba each fought one of the weakened IWA shinobi, killing them with one of their usual signature attacks, the Chidori and Man-Beast clone-piercing Fang combo that they were known for. Little did the two-leaf shinobi know that had they faced their opponents at full strength, they would have been killed outright in their fight. As for last to fight, which was Okita's, he regrettably killed the strange Kumo ninja simply nicknamed Shrieker in his match after the crouching toad-like man unleashed poison-covered maggots filled with acid shooting from his mouth. That strange bug-like creature exploded soon after, causing the acidic fumes to attack the young warrior's lungs. Once Okita breathed or the burns themselves got into the lungs of its victim, Okita felt the breathing part of his organs become extremely weak. Even now, the effect of such a deadly poison made the infected Shinsengumi member die painfully in a matter of mere moments. Still, the youngest member of the Shinsengumi team was able to kill his enemy in a last-ditch effort when, having his back turned, used the Gatatsu Zero stance and shot his sword at the surprised ninja, impaling him hard into the wall, killing the Kumo shinobi in an equally painful manner. After several of the Shinigami shinobi carefully removed his body from the area floor, the Shikage had soon approached the dead swordsman's body and placed coins on his eyes for the boatman on the river Styx as a sign of respect. After that was done, and he was prepared to be sent home, it was time to announce the fighters for the fighting section of the exam, which not surprisingly were different this time. Match number 1, Miss Shinobi Kurosaki Ichigo vs. IWA Shinobi Jigerjax Grimjow. Match number 2, Leaf Shinobi Tenten vs. Shinigami Shinobi Makamachi Masao. Match number 3, Shinigami Shinobi Kusajishi Yuichiro vs. Leaf Shinobi Inuzuka Kiba. Match number 4, Shinigami Shinobi Hanaya vs Miss Shinobi Yasutora Sato. Match number 5, Leaf Shinobi Akamichi Choji vs Shinigami Shinobi Ayasegawa Yumichika. Match number 6, Miss Shinobi Yuryu Ishida vs Shinigami Shinobi Madarame Mikaku. Match number 7, Shinigami Shinobi Sita Sojiro vs Miss Shinobi Inoue Oriheim. Match number 8, Shinigami Shinobi Shinomori Ayashio vs Shinigami Shinobi Hajime Saito. Match number 9, Leaf Shinobi Uchiha Sasuke vs Leaf Shinobi Hyuga Hinata. The final match got everyone's attention, and it was duly noted that Sasuke had a smirk going close to a psychotic smile before turning his gaze on the slightly terrified Hinata. For Sasuke it meant teaching his woman just who was in charge of their marriage before it even began, and in front of the very people of the village no less. He couldn't wait for the next part of the exam, knowing that when he fought Hinata he would make her submit in front of everyone, making it clear she was his woman, and not some demon loser. His thoughts were interrupted, however, when more chakra pressure came down upon the room, but at the same time felt like it was directed at him for some reason. It didn't take long for everyone to notice the power was coming from the Shikage, though why he was angry no one could really be sure. No one outside of Shinigami, Suna, or Mist anyway. Kimimaro, not wanting his Shikage to give away his identity, placed a hand on the man's robed shoulder and pressured it 3 times. It was a secret signal they had all created for him to calm down should he be upset beyond any further approach in such a manner. Slowly the pressure from Kenpachi's chakra left the area enough for the people around him to breathe again, and if Tayuya wasn't so out of it at the moment she would have said a few choice words that would have blown their cover sky high. Please forgive Shikage's temper, Hokage-sama. To make it up to you he wishes to invite you, Kazekage-sama, and Izukage-sama for dinner tonight, said Kimimaro, bowing his upper body to signify an apology. Very well, I accept the invitation on the condition Jiraiya of the Sannin can join me as my personal bodyguard, said Tsunade, wanting this play out in her favor, knowing that with all the pull Shinigami had at the moment a potential meeting could prove to the Fire Daimyo that things were looking up for the Leaf Village. Shikage-sama has no problems with you bringing the Toad Sannin with you, but that is as far as bringing guests with you goes. We will see you both at 7 p.m. sharp, said Kimimaro, stressing being on time was a necessity in this case. Before anyone could say anything further, all the Shinigami left in a poof of dark smoke, leaving several stunned shinobi in their wake. That power felt so familiar. Could it be him? No, that loser fell off the face of the earth after what happened in Wave Country, according to Sakura. It's more likely he went into seclusion due to his shame of being a no-talent shinobi. Still, I will have to keep my eye on him, thought Sasuke, looking over at the Raikage, seeing that stupid grin on his face, and wondering if Cloud Shadow might wish for an Uchiha to fight for him. He would have to find out later. Royal Leaf Hotel that night. It was interesting for Tsunade to see Jiraiya actually look presentable for once without his usual Sannin attire, but in a nice professional attire unlike that horrible Toad Sannin one. The two walked into the hotel, seeing it was swarmed with shinobi from Shinigami, Mist, and Suna talking to one another as if they were all best friends, which puzzled them to no end. I see you arrived, said a wolf skull-masked Shinigami with the kanji Baldi written on it. Beside him was a little girl with a cat mask on with pink whiskers with a fox-like tail sticking out, and a swan skull-masked Shinigami shinobi with strange eyebrows that rivaled Guy and Lee's own in the way of being strange. Tsunade and Jiraiya instantly recognized them as the 3 competitors entered into the Chunin exams. We're on time if that's what you mean, said Jiraiya, not liking to dress up in something so nice and fancy since it wasn't his style. Tsunade had forbidden him from doing his usual Toad Hermit dance to avoid any embarrassment that he may create while with her. Jiraiya had in turn told her that no matter what she couldn't punch him out the window since it would make her look equally as bad. That little reminder/remark nearly caused Jiraiya to miss this little get-together. Follow us then, said Yumichika, escorting the two to the elevator to take them to the top floor where their Shikage stayed. How are all you Shinigami shinobi getting along with the other shinobis from Mist and Suna? Said Tsunade, trying to strike up a suitable conversation out of her escorts. Just fine, actually. Unlike the Leaf Village here, we actually are all very well respected for the missions we've been on. Shikage-sama only has us go on the most challenging of missions to prove ourselves worthy before him. We're talking life and death missions that are vital in taking, and none of those boring D-ranked missions you guys always do for what you count for teamwork, said Ikika, knowing that the selection process for genin teams was not about having a balanced team skill-wise, but rather balanced in how the people on the team get along and can work together. The teams were put together with people you could trust your very life with or give your life for them if need be. Enough said? I will make sure to have a mental note of that for when our next year genin teams are created, said Tsunade, while inside she wanted to tear the bald man to pieces. Boy, is she in for a surprise in a month when Fox is out of the bag, thought Yumichika, the two over finding the female Hokage to be quite beautiful despite hiding her real self and seeing her Sannin tag along looking nice as well, but his facial structure was clearly ugly. And what's your name, little one? Said Jiraiya, believing that no kid could resist his ever-handsome face. He wished. The tiniest of the entire group just looked at Jiraiya, tilting her head slightly before facing front, looking back towards the elevator doors before they opened, revealing their intended floor. This is our floor, time to go to Wrinkly Boob and Super Pervy Man, said Yuichiro before she started skipping out the elevator door and down the hallway. Tsunade and Jiraiya instantly became annoyed at the girls' nicknames for them. This girl is almost as bad as Naruto, if not worse, thought Tsunade and Jiraiya nearly at the same time, while the other two were holding back their fits of laughter at the choice of nicknames. Soon they followed the skipping fox girl, wondering why they didn't notice the fox-like features before during the preliminaries against Sakura. Speaking of the little pink-haired bitch, she was still in intensive care for several broken bones, some cracks/broken ribs, and all the while seeing a doctor on how to focus on the signs of her plumbing leaking during the day. Tsunade fixed that problem after removing the pressure her other organs had on her bladder and intestinal tract that, if not treated right away, would have caused her to wear adult diapers during her prime, which the Haruno girl did not want to happen to her. Once they reached the last door on the left, the two guards looked at the invited guests before one knocked 3 times and opened it 1 second later, allowing them to enter. What they saw shocked them, as the Shikage was still in his robes with the hood that hid his face, while beside him was none other than Hyuga Hinata and Sabaka no Temari. Both girls were both wearing high-class kimono dresses of what seemed to be made of the highest quality and design. Greetings, Death-chan. I hereby announce that Wrinkly Boob and Super Pervy Man are here to meet you, said Yuichiro, bowing to her Kenchan, knowing that now was not the time to reveal his identity even by her casual nickname for him. Still, it didn't stop the little fox girl from giving him another nickname. Temari-san? Hinata? What are you doing here? Said Tsunade, looking at the two girls' answers only to find them not speaking to her any. They came here as Shikage-sama's guests, said Kimimaro near a corner of the room closest to the window, keeping the curtains closed for safety reasons. Temari I can understand, but what about Hinata? Said Jiraiya, on account of the fact that the Kazekage had given his sister away in an arranged marriage to the Shikage. Is this an interrogation? Then quit complaining on why we were here and just be glad that you have someone with you for this at all, said Temari, glaring at the Hokage while she succeeded in sticking up for Hinata, who was trying to keep a calm yet serious face of a mask on. She's got a point, thought Jiraiya, knowing that it was a small mercy that he got invited to this invitation, much less Tsunade herself being asked. Fair enough, I suppose, said Tsunade, sitting down at the large table in the room with Jiraiya next to her, the Kazekage Gaara on one side at the middle, with the Mizukage Rin on the other, while Temari and Hinata sat on each side of the Shikage. After they all sat down, the Death Four came in and gave them their food, which was a dish that strangely enough originated in village hidden the waterfall. The meal consisted of fish, vegetables, spices, and a bowl of fruit found only in that area, which was why it was such a delicacy anywhere else. How has Konoha been since I was last here, Hokage-sama? Said Gaara before taking a bite of his food, which was quite delicious in his mind on account he rarely ever had it. Being in a dessert, and all has that effect on one's taste buds. It's had its ups and downs, though I'm afraid to admit it's been more of the latter than the former, said Tsunade, hoping to bring the Shikage into the conversation this way. Well, considering what your village did to that poor boy Naruto, wasn't it? Said Yujito behind her mask before removing the bottom half of it after hitting a secret switch so she could eat and still keep her identity a secret. It wasn't my idea for Kakashi to try and kill Naruto, said Tsunade, finding their gaze on her to be most uncomfortable, seeing as they were all questioning her about what she had let happen. But what about sending the ANBU and Jiraiya to engage Uzumaki after you discovered he was not as dead to kill him? Said Kimimaro, knowing straight from his master's mouth how they came for him after that little stunt Hatake pulled. How do you know that? Said Jiraiya, looking over at the man hiding behind his skull mask, wondering if that was who they thought he was or not. We have countless spies everywhere, and unlike the Leaf, we are quite good at seeing the whole truth when others can't, said Kimimaro, not taking his eyes off the pair of Leaf shinobi. What do you think of Shikage-sama about everything that happened during the preliminary fights? Said Tsunade, trying to change the subject on the whole matter, even if just for a moment. Kimimaro was going to move to stand beside his Shikage to translate for him, when the said man, that was Kenpachi, raised a black glove telling him to stop, indicating he was going to speak for himself. They heard a long growl from his throat that sounded like an angry rabid dog, mixing with a sound that seemed like he was trying to focus his speech muscles to speak the words he wanted to say. Aside from what has occurred with Konoha's Team 7, I think that all the matches today went rather well, said the now demonic voice Kenpachi generated after secretly executing several one-handed signs under the table to do it. A/N, think Anubis from Stargate, SG-1. Enjoy. Wait. I thought you didn't speak human tongue? Said Tsunade, frowning at the robed man, wondering why all the deception. I think my translator missed me before. I can speak human tongue, but most of the time I choose not to speak it due to the people around me being idiots and fools, said Kenpachi behind his robes, not having his skull mask on so he could eat with the rest of them. Why not reveal your face then? We are either idiots nor fools, so you can trust us with your true identity, said Jiraiya, trying to get the man to reveal who he was so they knew who they were dealing with. You know he won't do that, just as I won't reveal my face or my water daimyo will to you either, since we know that most of the people in Leaf can't keep secrets, said Yujito, eating some of the fresh apple slices in her bowl, loving the taste of them. I won't just sit here and have you all badmouth the Leaf village that my grandfather founded over a century ago by two upstart unknowns and those that support them, said Tsunade, having all she could take of them insulting the village that, while she hated for being stupid, felt compelled to defend for the sake of her ancestors. The Hokage/Sannin would have done more when rising from her chair with Jiraiya half out of his already had she not felt the intense chakra pressure the Shikage was generating. The amount of power he created practically commanded her to sit back down or face the consequences of her disobeying such strength that was before her. You would do well to know your place, Hokage-sama. Your village has fallen to the way of power-hungry fools under your guidance, and you have the nerve to call me and Mizukage-sama upstarts. This is an insult worthy of war between our villages. Make no mistake, Slug Princess, if you think that there is power behind your words, then you have fallen almost as far as the villagers that reside in this dying place. I wanted you both to come here tonight in order to see if you had become what I had hoped you and the Toad Sannin had not. Now I see you are nothing but shadows of your once great former selves. Your younger selves wouldn't have let this village become what it has now. You both sicken me greatly, said Kenpachi, scowling at the two people before him, now seeing them as the failures they truly were without a spine if they can't stand up to the people of Konoha given such legendary skills. How his bastard father ever became strong under the Toad Sannin was beyond him. Hey! You leave Tsunadeheim alone, said Jiraiya, not liking how this guy was now nearly driving his former teammate and love interest nearly into tears. If either of you or any of those in the village can handle the bitter truth, then you two should get out, said Kenpachi, emphasizing on the get out part more than usual, which to Jiraiya was code for something, though what exactly he didn't know. Bastard, said Tsunade, ready to dive over the table to strangle the neck of the Shikage with all her strength, even if it meant dying at the hands of those loyal to him. Jiraiya, however, stopped her and held her in his arms, looking between her and the death shadow of the Shinigami village with piercing eyes for a moment. Without another word, the Toad Sannin turned around with Tsunade and left the room to get her some place safe enough to dry her tears and tell her what he knew. Don't you think that was a little harsh, Uzumaki-san? Said Gaara, looking at his robed friend with a raised eyebrow. What would you have me do, Gaara? Tell her who I am, then have her blab it everywhere so everyone knows, and then have over half the village come at us for being here. You know that they have no love for you either, my friend, and if they try to, they will go after you, your brother, or sister to make you suffer, said Kenpachi, disengaging his demon voice jutsu in order to speak normally. That will never happen, said Gaara, with his eyes narrowing and his killer intent spiking significantly for all to feel around them. Don't worry, Gaara, I'll be fine should that happen, and if I get into trouble that not even I can handle, Kenpachi-kun will protect me, said Temari, holding onto his arm, snuggling into its muscled form hidden beneath the robes. Hinata scowled at Temari, not wanting to be outdone by Suna-born woman, and snuggled up to Kenpachi's other arm, showing that she was thinking the same thing. The fact that they were shooting lightning glares at each other was also a dead giveaway too. Since we have a month to get everything ready, what should we do first? Said Yujito, so she could inform him more of the plan, since not all the specific details of the destruction of the Leaf Village were given for security reasons. First, we need to keep an eye on IWA and Kumo, since they have no doubt formed a top-secret alliance with each other that won't be revealed until mere days before the finals. We will also have to get our forces ready in case we have to fight them, as well as Leaf Shinobi of Konoha's, so make sure all of your shinobi that you trust with this mission are prepared to do what they have to, said Kenpachi, looking at them all, seeing them nod and understanding, while Hinata and Temari knew that within a month's time the leaf would burn for a second time. Only this time the fire wouldn't go out until the village was nothing but ashes. What about those who don't approve of Konoha's policies? I heard rumors that the Aburames want out of here, but need time to get everything ready, said Hinata, as she knew her father, the entire branch family, and some of the main house of the Hyuga clan wanted out, but couldn't know what would happen if they tried. Our favorite nine-tailed demon Lord Zangetsu will take care of that while everyone is seeing the Chunin exams, and by the time anyone notices anything it will be too late, said Kenpachi, knowing that such a thing as transporting anything from a single person to a clan house was nothing that a demon lord couldn't handle. The simple fact that the said demon lord was speaking to each of the clan heads from the Akimichi, the Naras, and the Yamanaka clan was further proof that the plan was still running smoothly. What about the prodigy that is the Uchiha team? I think we need to do something to really send him over the deep end before the finals that will make him want to fight you over Hinata, said Rin to Kenpachi, knowing that the boy's instability was what made the boy so weak. Leave that to me. What I have in mind will drive him, and all those loyal to him, insane and cowering in fear at what we can do, said Kenpachi, letting out a chuckle at what he had planned for the spoiled Uchiha, knowing that it would drive the last Uchiha wild with rage. Just then Hanaya phased into the room and silently handed Kenpachi a large scroll with a blood seal on it, indicating whoever this scroll belonged to was only for family only. The security around this scroll was weak at best and pathetic at worst, Shikage-sama, said Hanaya, who under his Kage's orders broke into the Hokage's office and took the necessary scroll that held Kenpachi's family inheritance. As always, what the Leaf should treasure the most they ignore out of their own ignorance and stupidity, said Kenpachi, taking his family scroll from Hanaya before he opened it after biting his thumb and smearing his blood over the seal. Inside the scroll was none other than the special kunais with seals drawn on them and the instructions in using the infamous Flying Thunder God technique that single-handedly beat the village of Iwa into submission in the last Shinobi War when used by his father. Oh, how Kenpachi hated that man that held that title, and with good reason, since that man had caused him to face hell on earth from this very village out of his own stupidity. All on the belief that the villagers and shinobi he gave his very life for would actually follow through with his last wish. Clearly his mother was the brains of the family, because only an idiot would believe that such a dying wish would be carried out. Unacceptable. Should we proceed to phase 2 of the plan, Shikage-sama? Said Hanaya, his head now bowing towards his Kage to await new orders. Yes. Tell Toshiro and Ranjiku to remove Itachi's body from its cryogenic state and to prepare that sword of his to be put to good use, said Kenpachi, laughing as he pictured Sasuke's face when he saw the surprise that awaited the spoiled Sharingan user. Tsunade office 15 minutes later. That heartless bastard. How dare he speak to me like that? What right does that guy have to judge me or you and what we do or how Konoha is run? Said Tsunade, pounding on her desk with all her might, making the seals on her desk that absorbed her blows were now becoming strained from the assault. Got to admit the man has a way with words. Even more so at the end at what he was secretly telling us, said Jiraiya, running a hand through his white hair before letting out a small sigh. What do you mean? He was insulting us and telling us to get out of Konoha, said an angry Tsunade while half tempted to punch Jiraiya for taking this in such a calm manner. Yes, and anyone else that doesn't approve of Konoha. Remember, you have to look underneath the underneath with this to find that something is going to go down during the Chunin exams in a month, and he wants everyone here that disapproves of the Leaf to get out, said Jiraiya, wondering exactly how the Kage of the Shinigami village was going to do that. If that's the case, we have to warn everybody involved, said Tsunade, knowing that a lot of preparation would be involved in saving what lives she could. Seconds later, the lights in the room went off and only the moonlight coming in from the windows allowed the two Leaf shinobi to see if just barely around them. Don't bother, they already know, said a figure from the shadows appearing before them with his crimson coat blowing in an unseen and felt wind. You! How did you get in here? What are you doing here? And what do you mean when you said they already know? Said Tsunade, who didn't feel like taking on this weirdo at the moment. I can get in anywhere I choose to enter. The reason behind how I do it is currently none of your concern for the time being, said Zangetsu. The shadows behind him that he had used to hide him gave his form a shadowy and intimidating look. You didn't answer my last question, said Tsunade, glaring at the supposed man before her, still ready to fight this intruder with the help of Jiraiya. True, but as I said, it's currently none of your concern. All that you really need to know is when the time is right you will have to choose between what is right for the village or for those around you. Sides will be taken when the fighting starts, and the one I serve does not want you to be part of the opposition to him, or anyone close to him for that matter, said Zangetsu, slowly fading back into the shadows and out of the room itself. Wait. Tell us his name. Who is the Shikage? Said Jiraiya, wondering how this person could do what he was doing and if that person was a person at all. You still haven't figured it out, it seems. Then you will have to find out with the rest of the Leaf Village, and when you do that will be when you must choose, said Zangetsu before disappearing permanently into the darkness of the room with the lights turning back on mere seconds later. Jiraiya, during the remaining month that is to come between now and the finals I want your spy network to run overtime and find out what the hell is going on, said Tsunade, as she seethed while clenching her fists, wishing she could pound the living crap out of something. Don't worry, I'll get my people on it, and be back just in time for the finals for when they start, while being at your side so another surprise attack like Sensei experienced does not happen, said Jiraiya, knowing that if something remotely happened to Tsunade he could never forgive himself. Elsewhere at the moment. It was such a pity your genin teams were killed so soon, said Aizen, sitting in his chair sipping some tea in his hotel room with Tozen standing next to him, while the Yondaime Reikage, that was Ikimara Jin. Yes, it was. But then again, so were all of yours as well, except that one with that ever so strange jaw of his. Though from the calm look on your face they seem to mean nothing to you in terms of value. A means to an end, perhaps? Said Jin, smiling his ever so freaky smile that if Tozen could see would feel nervous around. Considering how Uzumaki Naruto fell off the face of the earth after Mist Village as well as Water Country in general performed a major transformation, I had to make sure that I had a backup plan for the destruction of Konoha. I'm also pleased you wish to join me in its total destruction of Reikage-sama, said Aizen, smiling at his partner in crime. Yes, well, I would imagine that during the time of the Yondaime Hokage it would have been impossible for you to get revenge on Konoha, but now, well, let's just say I don't expect you to lose much on your side of things. After all, it was Namikaze Minato that killed your ANBU captain of a father in the last Shinobi War, so I think it's perfect karma that you destroy what he holds dear, said Jin, eating a cookie from his plate in tiny bites. Yes, I think that is very good karma in my bingo book, though I can't help but wonder what the Shikage, Kazekage, and Nezukage will do once we start our attack on Konoha, said Aizen, not liking how those mentioned variables would factor into his plans. Maybe they will let us kill them and leave since they are either hostile or neutral towards the Hidden Leaf Village, but then again you never know, said Jin, taking a sip more of his tea. There is something about the Shikage that worries me, Aizen-sama. You must be wary of him and not underestimate his power, said Tozen, not wanting to make his master seem weak, but to keep the man he served from dying under the other Kage's hands. Regardless, when the time is right, Konoha will fall before me, and anyone else that tries to stand in our way will too, said Aizen, confidently looking out the window night sky, knowing that if there were certain unforeseen enemies that arrived to stop him, he along with Tozen and the Reikage himself would destroy them like rats. Konoha, undisclosed location 2 weeks later. Uchiha Itachi shivered as the ice around him melted, but couldn't see anything as his eyes were still covered by his leaf headband to prevent him from possibly doing anything in the near future. Not that Itachi could use his Sharingan, considering that his whole body was currently numb from the ice that had consumed around his body. While it felt like he was dying when experiencing it, the power behind the ice was in actuality preserving him in his wounded state after his fight with the loyal shinobi of Uzumaki Kenpachi. Hey, wake up, Uchiha team, said a rough voice before he was backhanded by a hard fist to his jaw, making him lose a tooth and some blood dripping down the side of his mouth. Renji, watch what you're doing, you idiot! A few more light taps like that and you could have accidentally removed his headband from his eyes, and if we were not careful used the Sharingan on us, said another voice that Itachi didn't recognize, but sounded rough like Kisame's always sounded. Why am I still alive? Said Itachi after several minutes of silence after deciding to make it known to them that he was in fact awake enough to talk. To be the next pawn in this little game of chess, Itachi team, said Kenpachi now with a huge smile on his face, with his very voice, and even his chakra signature forever burned into Itachi's mind, practically seeing the huge grin on the man's face. And how does the great Uzumaki-sama wish me to aid him while being a prisoner under his watchful eyes? Said Itachi, not really caring at this point if he died or not, since it was pretty clear what level of hell he was going to end up at when his soul left his body. I'm going to kill you soon, and when Sasuke sees you in the state I put you in, he'll lose whatever sanity he has left to try and kill me at the Chunin exams. It's that simple, said Kenpachi with his now face a mere inch from Itachi's, while his voice rumbling next to the Sharingan user's ear before letting out a low chuckle. My brother is still weak, I see, after all this time. I heard before you attack our main base of operations that my brother was going to be trained to succeed Tsunade-sama as their next Hokage. It seems the leaf keeps getting weaker as time passes, with the loss of the Yondaime, then Sandaime, then a less than competent Tsunade, and finally my weakling brother of an Uchiha, that is Sasuke, to replace her, said Itachi, who despite his current condition couldn't help but let out his own chuckle at the thought of his brother being so weak yet possessing the title of someone who was considered strong. In all reality it did seem funny to him, since Sasuke was the runt of the once great Uchiha clan. Yeah, it has. But with your involuntary help I'm going to see to it that this village doesn't live past the remainder of this month no matter what, said Kenpachi, taking the Uchiha's sword off a nearby table and grinned before lifting up Itachi's headband. I'm ready, said Itachi, having made peace with what was to come. Don't worry, when this is all over your brother will join in hell where all of you bastards belong, said Kenpachi before the room surrounding them darkened and the sound of a sword piercing flesh was heard echoing through the room before silence took the room once more, with only the periodic dripping of liquid hitting wooden floor heard every few seconds. The next day, Uchiha District. Uchiha Sasuke left his home and headed towards the training grounds on the other side of the village, where Kakashi wanted to personally train him in more of his jutsus that the copy ninja learned over the years to help him become stronger. The Uchiha district itself was once the prize of Konoha, with Sharingan users everywhere like Sasuke working as ninja or mainly involved in the police force created to keep public order. Now the entire district was empty, barren, and quite literally a shadow of its former self as the people of the village awaited that one fateful day. The day where the last remaining Uchiha would sire children to revive his clan to its former glory that Konoha had seen rise during its years in peace and war. For Uchiha Sasuke that was the last thing on his mind, as all he cared about was receiving power, and what would give him power, whether it be living or inanimate by definition. Even now, as he walked through the once populated Uchiha district, Sasuke was feeling the hunger for power growing inside of him, and awaited today's training on account of just who his opponent would be in the final matches. Today was also the day that the scheduled fight would be changed into something else. The ripple effect that caused the change was when Sasuke walked past the old Konoha police station founded by the Uchiha clan many years ago with their clan symbol on it. It was meant to mark them as its founders and to show the village just who had the power within the village outside of the shinobi way while still under the rule of the Hokage. It helped instill fear and respect, but for Sasuke he preferred the former, since fear meant it was power, and while respect meant powerful if not seemingly unbeatable. It also meant something that was respected was not invincible and could be killed, and for Sasuke, he did not want to be respected or wanted to be feared. However, as he passed the station without a worry in the world, Sasuke soon heard the drip of something coming from the station due to the echo of the silence around him. At first the Uchiha prodigy did nothing, thinking it was something else or his imagination, but when the wind picked up and the smell of blood hit his nose, the Uchiha froze in fear he seemed to love more than anything. The smell of blood that had not been smelled since that day nearly 8 years ago was something that Sasuke thought he would never have to deal with again in his lifetime, but what saw next would forever haunt him long after he died. It was Uchiha Itachi, pierced with his own sword into the Uchiha crest on top of the old police station, and wave after wave of blood was flowing from his body. The source was from where the sword had gone through the center of Itachi's chest, that was even from afar clearly the clan slayer's own sword. The man looked like he had been dead for hours, maybe even more, with glazed dead black eyes that held nothing in them, with no hint of emotion or remorse. Itachi's Aizen looked almost like he did when the Uchiha clan was slaughtered and when Sasuke confronted him those long 8 years ago. The last bit of sanity the boy had was now gone and destroyed, as the facial symbol of the Shinigami was imprinted next to the body in the dead man's own blood. All Sasuke could do was scream. Thanks for watching. I hope you had as much fun as I did putting this epic what if together. Make sure to smash that like button, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss a single twist in the story. Drop your thoughts, theories, or even wild ideas in the comments. I read every single one. And hey, if you're craving more awesome Naruto content, go check out the other videos on the channel. I've got plenty of heat waiting for you. Until next time, stay sharp, stay awesome, and remember, even a shadow clone needs love. Peace out.